So tonight we're going to talk about your cannabinoids, a little bit different topic because typically we discuss products. We discuss products. What does the product do and specific things? But I thought tonight let's focus on the individual cannabinoids because, in essence, our cannabinoids are a part of the hemp plant and a part of almost all our products. So why not zoom into the different cannabinoids one by one? And I've decided to do it tonight. My name is Peter. I'm a scientist. I'm also a brand ambassador with Canaway. And I worked in my research career at different universities, mostly focusing on the interaction with nutrients, so plant components and food components, and our biochemistry. And that is a very fascinating topic. I fell in love with it. I spent also after university working with companies in developing products, mostly in the dietary supplement field. And, that's been all my career for the last, let's say, 30 years already. So I really fell in love with this thing. And, I got to know Canaway a couple of years ago when I, decided to invest more and more time in studying hemp and what it can mean for our health. And I really was fascinated about it. A lot of people start with zero knowledge, just like me. I didn't know anything about it, but I started reading, looking at clinical studies, looking at effects that the plant may have, the cannabinoids may have, the terpenes may have in our body. And I came to the conclusion it is a very much overlooked effect that we have, and we cause that overlooking ourselves because what we have done in our history is basically ban the plant for not obvious reasons really, because it was a very well-known plant in our society, not just for health benefits but also for building, for all kinds of things that we have been using the hemp plant for. Then we banned it, and slowly we kind of got deficient in phytonutrients, so phytocannabinoids from the hemp plant, because we didn't get it anymore. We used to get it. We didn't eat hemp really before the ban, but we got it in our body through, for example, cow milk or other ways that animals were feeding on hemp. So it was a very normal part of our body, even though we never heard about it. We didn't know what it was doing. We didn't know that it was important, but we discovered that all later, back when we lifted the ban in more and more countries and started investing more and more time into research and more dollars and euros into research. So tonight we're going to talk about the cannabinoids. We're going to focus on, because there are more than 200 cannabinoids, right? I mean, we've done metabolomic studies in our lab in Poland. Some of you were there, and we've seen the machinery where they now have been able to identify more than 200, amazing really, more than 200 different cannabinoids in the plant. And that is fantastic. And that's essential to our entourage effect, which I will talk about a little bit but later. But here are the most important ones that we probably have heard of. Left in the corner, we see CBD. A lot of people confuse our company with a CBD company. Well, let me tell you, we're so much more than a CBD company. If we were just having CBD in our company, we would be just like anybody else who sells cheap, probably synthetic stuff out there. And there's so much more in the hemp plant that we need in order to create a much stronger health benefit. You see a couple of here: CBDA, CBG, CBC, maybe one you haven't heard about, but it's also getting more and more research attention, and of course, CBN. So we're going to dive into those things. But first thing I can tell you is that a lot of these cannabinoids have similar effects, right? We always read like anti-inflammatory, we read antioxidants, we read neuroprotective, improved focus, and they all do that to some extent. Some better, some not so good, but that is important to know, that because they have a big similar chemical structure, they are having a lot of similar effects, but each of them have specific effects, and that's what I want to talk about tonight. So, and why do they have similar effects? Because of the structure, but also because they interact with the cannabinoid receptors in a similar way. So we know that these cannabinoids all have a positive effect on inflammation. They reduce inflammation, and of course, inflammation is a negative effect in our biochemistry that is, causing all kinds of pain and all kinds of other problems in our body, and also serious diseases like heart disease, inflammatory bowel disease, IBS, Crohn's disease, some Alzheimer's. So, if we can reduce that, we have a potential long-term health benefit. We also know that these things are antioxidant properties. So antioxidants means fighting off free radicals, meaning that we are not so sensitive for the damaging free radicals that we are facing in our society today from our lifestyle, but also from external pollution. They have neuroprotection, as I told you. They are, protecting our nerve signaling between the nerve cells, which improves our happiness, our sleep, our focus abilities, and that is, as we understand, also beneficial for calming. Calming, a lot of people report that to us, that if they take broad spectrum cannabinoid products, they're experiencing calming effects. Does everybody get the same thing? No, absolutely not, because everybody has a different starting point in our biology. Some people are, they have, a lot more inflammatory responses. Some people have more free radical damage. So cannot predict or cannot promise upfront, when you take this, you're going to experience that, because it depends completely on your initial starting point of your health situation before you know what you're going to be experiencing. So this is the most complicated slide. I promise you the rest is simple. I'm a chemist, so I love looking at these things, but it is the sign, and you don't have to look into details here, but the key is we have one starting component in our hemp plant, which is CBGA on the top, which is one of the cannabinoids we're going to be talking about tonight. And the plant transforms this into all different other cannabinoids through different processes. And that's key, because that allows us to focus with the harvest on what kind of cannabinoid we want to get in our product, which cannabinoid we want to have higher concentration of. And this is a simplified picture of the same thing. It starts with CBGA. CBGA is the one that is very early present in the hemp plant and is going to serve as the starting point for all other cannabinoids. What we see is that because of enzymatic conversion, the plant converts this CBGA slowly into three new components: CBCA, CBDA, and THCA. And the A stands for acid. Acid is what we call the precursor form, the starter form for the final products. This happens in the plant. So if you harvest a hemp plant very early, you get a lot of CBGA. If you wait longer before harvesting, you're going to get more of the later cannabinoids. So the first step is enzymatic conversion. And then we have heat. When it stands on the field, heat is, in summer, these components are going to be converted into their end form. So CBC acid form, we call that decarboxylation. Difficult word, but you probably heard of it. It means removing of the carboxylic, the acid form, ending up in CBC or CBD or THC. That is what happens in the plant. And then THC is actually oxidized in the plant to CBN, which is a rather new cannabinoid, which I will be talking about tonight as well. So, and then later, when you have an older plant, there is some CBG left over because it didn't get converted into all the other ones, and that is going to be converted into CBG. So this is basically the pathway. And we at Kannaway, we don't want to have psychoactive products. So that means we make sure we do not have THC in our products and THCA. We can do that. We can get it out of it. We can filter it out. We can purify it so we get very low, non-detectable THC levels. We believe in that because we believe that that is the way to go. We want all the benefits of the cannabinoids, but we just don't want to have the psychoactive component in the products, which is, it has a biological effect, obviously, but we also believe it's not the way we want to develop our products. And we certainly don't want our people to run into testing issues. If you have THC, which is the active component, if you would smoke weed from marijuana, you could run into troubles when you do have a test happening in traffic or in your work situation. So we focus on the other cannabinoids, and cannabinoids are like a key that fit in a lock. A lock is the receptors in our body, and the key fits exactly into it. And once it fits in, it can turn the lock and do some cause some biological effect in our body, and that's what we're after. Now, we also know that we hear a word about entourage effect. And entourage is a difficult word maybe, but it means working together gives you a much better effect than looking at individual cannabinoids. And I demonstrate that in this way. You can have an isolate. An isolate is just CBD. And sadly, that is what most products are on the market. If you go on the market, on the street corner, you're going to see a lot of isolates because they're cheap. They're probably even synthetic. They're also easy to communicate because people say, "Hey, I got 10% CBD oil." Well, great for you, but you're missing completely the wealth, the breadth of the total hemp plant because you're just having one component in your product. A second layer is what we call broad spectrum. That's what we have. We have extracts from the hemp plant which contain not only CBD but also all the other cannabinoids that I will be talking about tonight, plus the terpenes. Terpenes are the components that give the hemp its characteristic smell. If you walk through a hemp field, you're going to be smelling the terpenes. And they all have each their own completely different benefits. We're not discussing that tonight. We're focusing on cannabinoids. And then we have full spectrum, where also the THC is present. And as I said, we are not on that. Our products have below detection level of THC, and maybe one molecule left or something like that, but not an effective amount. We just don't want to do that at Kannaway. So these receptors are interaction places in our body, and they are responsible for the effect. Here you see there are two different kind of receptors, receptor 1, receptor 2, and they are present in all our body, the skin and the brain and the spine and muscles everywhere. And they have specific locations. So receptor 1 is mostly in the nervous system. And as a result, if you interact with receptor 1, you're going to be seeing effects like improved mood, improved fear, less fear, so improved management of fear, better sleep, better memory, Alzheimer, depression, you name it, because of central nervous system effects. And receptor 2 is mostly in the immune system. So there it causes reduction of inflammation and pain. Now, why can it do that? Because it interacts what we call the endocannabinoid system, which is a complex overarching system that we have in our body. I mean, it's there, it's been programmed by our DNA, and it regulates all the other mechanisms in our body. It wasn't known 50 years ago. We recently discovered it's always been there, but we didn't know about it. And, because of its central regulating system, we have so many different effects that can happen in your body, depending on what you're lacking. Very important. Not everybody is going to get improvement in this because it depends completely on when you start with your biology. Now, what is also important to understand is there are two different ways of interaction or activation of a receptor. And cannabinoids, let's take the example here, CBG. CBG binds directly, so it's direct activator of cannabinoid receptor 1. What it does, it floats in the blood and it binds the receptor. And when it does that, the receptor gives a signal, I'm active, I'm ready to start working, regulating your endocannabinoid system. That's direct activation, and CBG is a good example of that. CBD, for example, does not really do that direct activation. It has what we call an indirect activation. Can be shown like this. If you have anandamide, another cannabinoid, this is an endocannabinoid that we produce ourselves. It binds to the receptor, but then when it does so, we have a cleanup molecule called COX-2. That's a abbreviation for that term. And it removes the anandamide from the receptor, thereby dampening the effect. Now, CBD, what does it do? It doesn't bind directly to the receptor, but what it does, it is blocking the COX-2. So it removes the cleanup mechanism, or it slows it down from the anandamide. And as a result, it indirectly also activates the receptor. Now, in essence, it doesn't really make a difference for what you feel, but I just wanted to make it clear that not every cannabinoid binds to all the receptors. They bind and work in different ways, but they all control the ECS and all the effects I've been showing you. Now, this is an illustration about the entourage effect. And if you take an isolate, yes, it works. CBD as an isolate form works, and it has an effect in your body. But it makes your ECS on the left-hand side work slower. It doesn't come to its full potential. It is doing something, but you can get so much more from the hemp plant if you would focus on multiple cannabinoids. And that is what we do. This is broad spectrum. You see here CBD, you see terpenes, CBG, and they all work together. And when they work together, they have a much stronger effect on the endocannabinoid system. Here you see that, they all, interfere with each other function. And as a result, the ECS is functioning much better and to a higher extent. And that's why it is so important to make it always clear to your people that cheap isolate CBD products are not what you're looking for. You're looking for the full potential of the hemp plant. And that's what you want to have. Now, let's go into the different cannabinoids, because this is Know Your Cannabinoids talk tonight. CBD, that's the one that we always talk about first. And as I said, sadly, I must say, people say that Canaway is a CBD company. We're not. We're a broad spectrum cannabinoid company. This, however, is the first one that has been discovered once the hemp ban was lifted in certain countries. And we now know that the highest concentration of D is in the flower. On the left-hand side, you see a typical hemp plant flower. And in that flower, which is exposed to sunlight, it gets converted by heating from the acid form, from the starting point, the starting precursor. So that's why, if you harvest the flowers and you harvest it after a certain while, so don't do it too early when they're nice and big, you're going to get a lot of CBD in your product. It is not intoxicating, CBD. It does not have any effects like THC would have. Why? Because it doesn't really bind strongly directly with the cannabinoid receptors. That's important. If it would, just like THC, it would actually potentially have a high effect. But it doesn't, because it works through this indirect activation. So not direct activation of it. Indirect ECS activity. What it does is it inhibits, so it slows down the breakdown mechanism. And that is FAAH. It isn't important what it stands for, but you have to see this. Everything in the body is, when it's done its job, it's being cleaned up. And there are all kinds of mechanisms in our body to clean up these things. So is the same thing with anandamide, right? Anandamide, our endocannabinoid that we make ourselves, does its job, binds to the receptor, and then is broken down by this FAAH. Now, CBD prevents that from happening effectively. And that means there is a longer positive effect of your anandamide. That's how CBD works. And it does also work on different mechanisms. CBD and other cannabinoids do not only work on cannabinoid receptors. There are many places in the body where they have a positive effect. One very important effect we always hear about is PPAR. It is a biological term, and this is like a switch enzyme. It is a switch enzyme that controls your entire metabolism and, as a result, energy production. Right? So a lot of people, this is a big crisis in our health. We have metabolism problems, or metabolic syndrome even, or diabetes, or obesity. And these are things that have to do with our entire metabolism. And this is one specific area where I believe that because we have banned the hemp plant, we have gotten so much trouble with these diseases lately, the last 30, 40 years, because we neglected the possibility, the knowledge that CBD would be improving the situation with obesity, diabetes, and metabolic syndrome, better controlling our metabolism. Now, we haven't taken enough CBD because of the ban, and it's a strong statement, but I do believe that is at least part of the reasons why we have slowly developed such important problems and such devastating problems in our society with metabolism. Now, it does a lot more things, CBD. For example, in the pain situation, and inflammation, it the normal way of communication between two nerve cells is that there are ions flowing from one nerve cell to the other, thereby transmitting the signal. And so if you have pain, you hit your finger, a signal has to travel through your hand, to your arm, through your neck, through your spine, to your brain, and then you notice that you have pain, right? That's how the nerve system works. Now, CBD slows that effect of signaling between nerve cells. So it doesn't result in that you have never hit your finger because you still done that, right? That is an effect, but you just don't notice it so much because the information flow from your finger to your brain is reduced by CBD. And that's why a lot of people report that it's very beneficial for chronic pain. I know a person on this call here tonight, they have problems with migraines, for example, or headaches. And we see that CBD can really have a beneficial effect there. Also with epilepsy, but the same route. What is epilepsy? Epilepsy is connection to our brain where nerve cells communicate with each other, and that is disrupted. CBD slows that connection between one nerve cell and the other, just like for pain, and that is very likely the reason why CBD has been so successful in dealing with epilepsy, mostly in children where it has been studied. In fact, today we have synthetic CBD prescribed by doctors in the United States, at least, called Epidiolex, which is a very common epilepsy treatment. It's synthetic, so it has a lot of side effects. Be warned, but you can get the same effects from our broad spectrum products because that contains natural CBD and natural other cannabinoids. And we know from studies, which I will show you at some other time, that the side effect profile of natural cannabinoids is so much better than when you're looking at purely synthetic cannabinoids. Also, you need a lot less of broad spectrum cannabinoids to get the same effect that Epidiolex would give you in epilepsy. So CBD is a product that has the most research, clearly. Because why? It's the oldest known compound. So a lot of more time has passed to do clinical studies. If you go onto porgrace.org, which is a site where you can read all the clinical research that has been done with cannabinoids, you can find a lot of studies with CBD. I took out two here. Anxiety, 600 milligrams of CBD over a few days period, and then for a longer period, clearly reduced anxiety. Anxiety during public speaking, which I'm doing right now. So probably that's why I'm not anxious in randomized studies. In epilepsy, many studies already finished, 37, 40% seizure reduction. And if you take the placebo, it's much less. So, these are examples, just two examples of studies, but there are many, many more. And I'm always happy to provide you with clinical studies on cannabinoids if you send me an email or somehow other contact me. Now, that is CBD, the most well-known, the most studied, mostly effective in all the inflammation, pain reduction, but we know also in the meantime why, and we can target its use into specific patients. We're not a treatment company, and we're not really, in the business for medication or treating people. But in order to take care of yourself, to prevent that you're going into these situations, you can clearly use cannabinoids from an early time in your life to improve your life condition over time enormously. CBDA is the precursor, the starting point for CBD. Now, it's an even stronger concentration in the plant in the beginning, the raw hemp plant. Why? Because if you leave it longer on the field, the CBDA is going to convert to CBD, right? So if you harvest early in the year, you're going to get a higher concentration of CBDA, the acid form. Also non-intoxicating because it doesn't bind to the cannabinoid receptor. Now this one is turned out to be, next to all the other effects that I talked about, the strong activator of serotonin. And serotonin is very important a neurotransmitter. Again, a signaling molecule between nerve cells. And it slows that down and it stabilizes the mood because of it. Yeah, it activates the serotonin receptor. If you have serotonin produced in your brain, you're going to exert the calming, the focusing effects. And CBDA mimics that. So a lot of people that have, depression symptoms, for example, or less emotionally stable symptoms, or not calm, have anxiety, they are going to be seeing a reduction in serotonin production in your body. And CBDA simply takes over, excuse me, that effect of serotonin. And that's been proven in a lot of models. I mean, there's quite a bit of research and it's emerging on CBDA. As far as I know, they're not clinical studies yet. That's how science works. You start when you're a scientist. I've done it myself. You start in petri dishes. You take a few cells, you see what it does on the cellular level. Then typically research is done into animal models. Whether you like it or not, it is happening still a lot because they're models to see what would happen in a living creature. And then you go finally, if it's all turned out to be positive, to human studies. That's a long period. That takes 10 years easily. So that's why the cannabinoids I'll be talking about from now on don't typically have human studies because it takes a longer time, at least not double-blind, placebo-controlled study. CBDA is also a strong anti-inflammatory suppressor, and that is not shown in humans, but it is shown clearly in these petri dishes with what we call models. You can put cells in a laboratory environment. We know that what kind of molecules they are producing when there is inflammation present, and we can follow that. If we add CBDA to those mixtures and we see a reduction of those inflammatory molecules like interleukin or components like that, we can conclude that there's a strong potential that it has that inflammation dampening in our body. Now let's look at CBG. CBG is we have that in our product portfolio. Of course, we have premium CBG, which is not just CBD. It is again all the cannabinoids, but we have managed because of harvesting at the right time to get a higher concentration of CBG. It's actually present in low amounts in mature plants. Why? Because CBG, remember, was the starting of all other cannabinoids. So if you have a mature plant, it's being transformed into all the other cannabinoids. So you have to really harvest it early to make sure that you have enough CBG in your product, or concentrate it by, for example, distillation. Also has anti-inflammatory components, neuroprotection, metabolic effects, but very interestingly, it also has an eye effect, and particularly for glaucoma. Now, I'm interested in this because I did my PhD research on eye health. I didn't study glaucoma, but as a result of my research in the eye field, I did study a lot of health concerns that we're facing in the eye health arena. The most common one is cataracts. When you get your lens, which is becoming gray, that you can't see well through it anymore. But glaucoma is number two. Glaucoma is the number two health concern with eye health, and that is caused by a high pressure of fluid in your eyeball. When that happens, the high pressure, it presses against the back of your eye where your cells are that pick up the light, your rods and cones. Probably you heard of that. And if they are constantly put under pressure for a longer time, they are dying, right? And that causes blindness. And that is a quite considerable portion of eye health concerns comes from glaucoma. It's difficult to treat. It has with eye drops, and you can slowly over time reduce that pressure. But CBG has had quite an interesting effect in reducing the pressure in the eyeball, which can easily be measured. I have it measured now and then. You actually put some drops in your eye. It makes sure you don't feel anything on your eyeball anymore, and they press really a little tool against your eye to see how much pressure your eye gives back. And you can measure that very, very effectively and very easily to do. And I do it sometimes, also just for fun, but also because I want to know if I don't have development. And because of CBG, I kept it very well at normal healthy levels. And that is, a very important additional effect of CBG next to all the other effects that we have. We know also why it is. It's probably because it promotes the blood flow around the eye, which through the retina, which takes away part of the fluids, but also opens up what we call Schlemm's canal. Schlemm's canal is a little tube, so to say, that is there to drain additional fuel from liquid from your eyeball. And if you open that up, and that's what CBG does, you're going to be reducing your intraocular pressure. Cannabidiol, CBN, a very new kid on the block. It's been, becoming increasingly popular. It does same thing as before, anti-inflammatory, neuroprotection, but there's a big but. And that but is that we know that CBN is particularly helpful with your sleep cycle. And here you see your sleep cycle on the left. It starts with different phases that you go through your night: light sleep, then N2, and N1 means you fall asleep, N2 means you go into light sleep, N3 you go into deep sleep, and then you have the REM, or rapid eye movement phase, where you really have the dreams typically, where some people that lays next to you can see your eyes moving, and you go through the cycle a couple of times during the night. And CBN has been shown to be very helping with that. People who can't sleep very well, who have difficulty in falling asleep or staying asleep or waking up refreshed, they have a benefit of taking additional CBN. It's like a natural, some people take melatonin, right? Melatonin is well known. It gives you a rather drowsy effect in the morning. And it's also, of course, chemical, so it has some nasty side effects as well if you take it for a long term. CBN is very, very mild, but has these effects. It gives you a calming effect just before going to sleep, very important. It relaxes you. You don't have a lot of pain. So if you have a back pain, for example, that prevents you from falling asleep, CBN is going to take care of that. And it promotes staying asleep, which is important. If you wake up all the time during the night, you're not going to get a good night's sleep. So CBN typically taken just before going to bed to become relaxed, to make sure that you're calm and you fall more readily asleep and stay asleep. And one study I want to show you, this is published in 2021, so 4 years ago, in this journal over here. They looked at 20 milligram dose of CBN, and in this study, it's a double-blind study. So double-blind means that you get half of the group gets the real product, half of the group gets a placebo product. So, and you don't tell them, they don't know which product they get. The doctor doesn't know, but also the patient doesn't know. So it's really fair, because if there is results and they don't know if it's coming from the placebo or the real product, you really know that the results are coming from the actual product, and not just because there's a placebo effect. So 20 milligrams of CBN, they didn't see in this study that it would make you fall asleep faster, but they did see a strong effect in the reduction of nighttime awakenings and overall sleep disturbance. And that's key. Once you've fallen asleep, you're going to be staying asleep much longer, and that improves your overall control. And I'm very happy to announce to you, I said this in different channels, that Kannaway has asked me, because of my experience in clinical studies with different natural products, we're doing right now a study with Sleep 3. Sleep 3 is, as you know, our newest sleep promoting product in Europe, and it contains CBN. It also contains some other herbal extracts. There is on my YouTube channel a presentation about Sleep 3, but this product we're going to study because we really want to prove we are very strong believers in the effects of this product. So we're going to study it in a double-blind placebo-controlled study. If you want to participate, scan this QR code. Point your phone at it, and it's going to bring you to a form. And that form is going to ask you a couple of things about yourself, and we're going to see if you are eligible to participate in this study. And if you are, you're going to get 2 months of product for Sleep 3 for free to test out. What we ask of you is that you take it every day before you go to bed, and every week you fill out a questionnaire. The questionnaire is not invented by me. It's an official sleep quality questionnaire. And in that way, we can follow the effects in this large group of people. We have already, I think we are now at 35 different people that have said yes to this. I want to participate in the study. And maybe you want to do too. And this is what you're going to get if you do. Now, I must warn you, not everybody will be allowed in. Why? Because you can imagine if you're a bad sleeper and you already take a lot of melatonin, for example, or other pharmaceutical products, the extra sleep 3 is not going to make a big difference, right? So that would not be a fair comparison between doing nothing and doing sleep 3. So that's why we can't guarantee that you will be accepted. But if you're interested, if you have a problem with sleeping, please fill out the questionnaire or send it to other people. This could be a great recruiting tool too, right? I mean, you could send this to people that you want to interest in cannabinoids. You could say, hey, have you ever heard of cannabinoids or CBN? No, maybe yes. Would you like to try it for 2 months? Well, why would they say no? They get free product. They just have to fill out the questionnaire once a week. So I would say absolutely yes. Why not? It does not make sense to say no to such an offer. So use that. That is a way to approach people, and maybe when the study is done, interest them to join your business or continue buying Sleep 3 from you. So look at that. You can also, if you don't have time to scan the QR code here, send me a message back and I will send you the link to the form. Now, the last cannabinoid I want to talk with tonight is CBC, a very new one. It's not new, it's always been there, but a very new that we know more and more about this specific cannabinoid. It stands for cannabichromene. So, they have these fancy names these days for all these cannabinoids. And since we have more than 200, we have to come up with no new names all in all again. Now, this has all the benefits that we discussed before, but there's a big but, and that is because become very interesting for cancer potential treatment, prevention. What does it do? We've seen more and more studies being invested into the potential of CBC to reduce tumor growth. And tumor growth is, of course, the thing that we want to prevent in developing cancer, but also surely once you have cancer, you want to slow it down. Now, this is not going to replace traditional cancer treatments. No way, right? I mean, radiation therapy, chemotherapy, this and that. But it may add in helping to shrink tumors more effectively, more faster. And we know that particularly in head and neck cancer, GI cancer, so in the gut, in the intestinal system, bladder cancer and breast cancer. Those are the 4 different areas where currently research has shown to have a potential beneficial effect of CBC. This is not in the clinical phase yet. This is in preclinical results, so it means again in the Petri dish. But this is pretty easy to investigate because you take tumor cells, which you can isolate from a person, and then you can add CBC to it, and you can see, compared to not adding CBC to it, if the cells are going to be slower in growing or even shrinking. And that is what has been proven for these 4 different cancer forms. Now, that probably tells me, since cancers, are similar in processes behind them, that for other cancer types, they also may have a benefit. So, hey, I would say take your cannabinoids. We don't have a specific CBC product, but every Pure Gold, every green hemp oil has CBC in it because it's part of our standard broad spectrum products. So why not take it to prevent cancer from occurring, or when you have cancer, maybe to help you make your other treatments more effective. I think this is very promising. We're still very early in the process, but we're going to see more and more research emerging. Now, this is, there's a reason why it would help with cancer situation that's called apoptosis. Apoptosis is the biological effect to kill cells, and that's what you want to do in tumors, right? You want to kill the tumor cells. And CBC has been shown to promote apoptosis, to promote the reduction of growth of these cancer cells. So that could be the reason why it would work. This has been studied in, for example, breast cancer. This already has been studied in vitro with actual patients that have breast cancer. So I'm very excited about this new aspect. So We are coming to a conclusion here about all the cannabinoids. So the key message here to take home is once you take green hemp oil or pure gold, you get all the cannabinoids. You don't get just one or two or three, you get them all, except for THC, because we are a broad spectrum company. So all the benefits that I described to you are present in pure gold. But if you want to have specific target on, for example, mood or, for example, pain, you can zoom in on CBG or CBN products when you want to promote sleep, because we have those too. It also contains the other cannabinoids, but it's more and higher concentration of certain cannabinoids. So that is what the first message. The second is take always a mixture. Go for the entourage effect. Go for your body to interact with all these cannabinoids together, because they give you such a much higher and stronger effect. And very important as well, research is still emerging. We know a lot already about hemp and CBD. We know more and more about CBG. We're getting to know more about CBN. We know little about CBC, but it's going to emerge because of the positive effects. More and more money is being spent in doing the research, and we'll be contributing to it through the Sleep 3 study, and so will other companies and universities. So it's a very, very promising field, and that's why I'm happy to be in this field, helping people promote their health. Now, I do a lot of these little short videos where I explain things about one topic in just 1 minute, 2 minutes. I publish facts and things about news that comes out of CBD. I talk about experiences that I had in the lab, for example, or on the field. And you can follow this. I do this almost every day. Every day something comes out. And these are 3 possible ways for you to follow me. My WhatsApp channel on the left, I have a Telegram channel, and I have a Facebook page. And every information comes on all the pages, so you don't have to follow them all. You may, and why not? It gives me better visibility if you do. But this allows you to follow what I do, just to benefit you. It's not to recruit people for me. It's not my business thing here. This is just sharing knowledge for everyone that want to know more about hemp, and potentially, hopefully, repost it on your own channels to make sure that that more and more people learn about it, so that you can also interest them for your business as a customer or as a brand ambassador. So follow this. Again, point your camera to one of these QR codes, and you'll get to the page where you can follow me, or send me a little message back if you want to know more about how to get there. That is the presentation tonight on know your cannabinoids. And next week we're going to have a different topic on Wednesday, and I'm happy for you to tune in. Thank you very much.